All righty. Well, welcome again, everyone, to our webinar here on cultivating a growth mindset in the classroom. We are joined by Jornea, who is the principal head of engagement at Microsoft Flip and is a learner, servant to others, and educator for over 20 years and lives by three amazing words of love, grow, and inspire. Jornea's previous experience included being a classroom teacher, reading interventionist, instructional coach, tech coach mentor with the Dynamic Learning Project, Alabama State Department of Education instructional technology specialist. She's also been a keynote speaker, educational thought leader, and presenter. With a passion of empowering and supporting others in innovation, Jornea is committed to the continuous quest to transform learning experiences for all and currently leads an awesome team of educator, innovation leads, and community engagement managers at Microsoft Flip, comprised of educators with diverse teaching backgrounds. In addition, Jornea serves as a host for Flip Live events, bringing equitable learning experiences with incredible guests in a variety of topics to classrooms and homes around the world. She's a learner for life and is always seeking ways to connect, learn, and grow with fellow educators around the world. So again, we are very privileged to have Jornea sharing today with her webinar and thoughts. So I will turn it over to you, Jornea.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that introduction, Andrew, and to everyone who is on the call today, or maybe watching in the future. I just want to start by saying thank you, because we as educators have a choice each day in order to grow and shift and change to meet the needs of our students. And we all know there's some that will never, there's some that might pause for a moment in time, but we also have to have that continuous quest for growth. And so this topic is one of my favorite topics to talk about. This is something that I truly believe in and kind of live my life every day with. And it's really about cultivating a growth mindset. And it does have to be cultivated, okay? And so when we cultivate our learners in their minds, we will build confident, curious, and resilient learners. So to really get us started, I really like to set the stage just a little bit about who I am. So I'm gonna go back one slide. And I would like everyone to do the same, okay? So in the chat, if you don't mind, share with me your name, the city and state that you're in, something that brings joy to your life, maybe where you currently work, and a goal for attending this conference. Because when we choose to attend a conference, it's for a reason and a purpose. And even though I'm talking about cultivating a growth mindset today, I will be physically at the conference in October, and I hope to connect with educators. And if I can help you along your learning journey, I want to be prepared to do so. So hop over to the chat and share that information with me. I'll share a little bit about myself. As Andrew mentioned, my name is Jornea Armant. I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is a city full of festivities, fun, diverse cultures. And I really think me growing up in this city allowed me to have a growth mindset. I've been in many situations where I've had things and then nothing the very next day through natural disasters. And so I think just the way that we live life in New Orleans has prepared my brain for anything that might come my way. I am a mom as well of two beautiful girls. They're 13 and 10. So any of you who are parents, you know what I'm feeling, right now. It's great. It's great to be a parent. But once again, you have to shift and change depending on those responsibilities. So right before joining here, I was rushing back from bringing my oldest daughter to her dance class. So as educators, we have to recognize and realize that, yes, we are educators, but we have all these other facets our lives that really bring our unique mindset to the classroom, which is a strength, okay? And we also have to think about that for our students. I am a learner for life. I went through all of the Google certifications, almost any educational technology company, I probably have done some type of training or certification. But one of my best experiences was the Google Certified Innovator experience. And with this experience, I had I would say like a class, but really they're like a family now of educators from around the world who had a growth mindset. They thought about just issues that they were experiencing in their own learning communities and challenges that they wanted to address. And collectively, we helped each other figure those things out by utilizing technology. And so today, as I share about this topic, I'm really going to be talking a lot about how we can build a community of learners centered around collaboration. Throughout this presentation, I would love for you to also interact with me on social media. If you are on the socials, I can be found almost everywhere as savvy_educator. So please feel free to tweet out anything that speaks to you. And my goal for this conference is just to meet incredible educators from Iowa and beyond, if there's anyone outside of Iowa attending this conference, and learn the challenges that you are facing so that I can learn how to better support your needs as an educator. All right, so today we will have a couple of learning targets. Now, as an educator, I believe in learning targets. Students should know what it is that they're going to interact with for today. So that's why I put this up in the beginning of any of my presentations. So hopefully you can take this tidbit back to your classrooms as well. So the first thing we want to do is understand growth mindset, and then also the power of yet. And I love that word, yet. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to actually create some class agreements and then also some norms that foster a growth mindset. We will explore strategies and techniques to improve growth mindset. And finally, we will discover how technology can assist. Now, I can speak on this all day long. We don't have all day, right? We have about 50 minutes left. And so what you'll notice throughout this presentation is that I'm going to give you some time to stop and think and jot some things down and think about how you might be able to apply some of these ideas to your classroom. And please feel free to share out in the chat as well so that others can learn right along from you. All right, so let's start off with that big question. What is growth mindset? Well, for us to really understand growth mindset, we first have to have an understanding of what is mindset. So when we think about mindset, here's Merriam-Webster's definition. It is a mental attitude or inclination. So let's think about that word, an attitude, right? And we know when we interact with people, we can see the way that they think, react, believe, feel. The second part of the definition says it's a fixed state of mind. Now, we all know sometimes if you have a fixed state of mind, when you have other things that come that are not expected, it becomes a challenge. So what really is a growth mindset if it is the opposite of a fixed mindset? It really is the belief that one's abilities can be developed through learning, dedication, and then also hard work. And so thinking about our classrooms, our students come to us with their own unique experiences, their areas of knowing, those areas of the unknown. Neither is better than the other, right? They're just different experiences. And first, we have to craft our mindsets to understand that so that we know how to best interact with our scholars. So as we continue thinking about what can we do as educators when it comes to growth mindset, our job really is to co-create and foster an environment of trust and respect that is a brave and safe space for all of our scholars. And so when I say that word co-create, what that means is we need to be having these conversations with our scholars, determining what our classroom is going to look like and sound like with our scholars. And the reason why we want to do it with our scholars is they have to have a reason, a why. They also have to feel included and feel like they also have power within the space to also not be a learner, but also a teacher, to also, help to grow other people within that learning environment as well. So what does that really look like? And what does that sound like in a classroom? Now, I taught second grade. So just imagine, I used to sit on the floor. My kids wore uniforms and I wore a uniform right alongside them. And most of the time, district administrators would come in and they would think I was one of the kids sitting on the floor. But What does that look like and sound like? It really is centered around how we do things within our school or classroom community. What are the things that we are modeling as educators? So, one thing it may look like or sound like is encouragement to embrace challenges and also be a risk taker. I remember when my oldest daughter was maybe in kindergarten or first grade, her school was an IB school, International Baccalaureate School. And so they had these IB traits that they learned about. And I remember my daughter came home one day so excited and she said, "Mom, I got an award today." And I said, "Awesome. What was your award about?" And she said, "I was a risk taker." And I said, "Tell me more about that." And she said, "Well, Mom, there were some things that I wasn't sure that I could do, but I just tried. And then I was able to do it." That's being a risk taker, right? So even our youngest learners can learn at an early age the power of risk taking. And the beauty of that is it can apply to every facet of their life, right? So when we go to a restaurant, now she wants to be a risk taker and try different foods, right? If we are exploring a new sport, she wants to be a risk taker so she can grow within that sport and not just give up, right? So once again, this is language, this is practices that can easily be embedded, whether you are 5, 15, or 50, right? I'm still, working at Microsoft, being a risk taker every single day, exploring new things that I did not know beforehand. A second piece is modeling persisting through obstacles as an adult. Now, I know this is very hard for many of us. When I joined this Zoom call, the first thing I said to Andrew was like, "I haven't done Zoom in a while. That's not my area of expertise, but I'm ready to do it. Get ready to ask questions, right? And not give up." And so even when we're in the classroom sometimes, and I know technology sometimes can be our best friend, but also our enemy at times. But if we show our students that we are persisting through those obstacles, we are asking for help, our students can help us out as well, right? If we are modeling that for our students, then they know, you know what, I shouldn't give up. I have other people that I can ask for help. I can explore my thinking and figuring out like ways to problem solve the obstacles that are in front of me. And we are the best models to do so in our classroom. Another piece is the reflection on the process of learning. Now, I know we have our standards and we have our curriculum and we have to get through things within, a certain time frame, whether that is a quarter or a semester of learning, et cetera. But we have to make time for reflection, not just on the content, but how students learn that content, right? When we give time to our students to reflect on their actual process of learning, then they start learning about, well, what really worked well for me during this process? What were the areas that I had challenges with during this process? What would I do different the next time, right? And then it really allows them to be a true learner and apply their process of learning to how they do things. And I think this is one thing where when all students have the opportunity to do that, but also share their process of learning, those other students that might have a process of learning that did not work so well for them have a new strategy that they can apply to their learning process. The next thing that we can easily do is acknowledgement of learning when mistakes happen, right? Mistakes are like those beautiful moments of learning. And sometimes, I remember even as a kid when I made a mistake at something, I would get so upset, because the one thing we do know when we make a mistake, our brain triggers something like we did something wrong, right? That's a great thing. That should be celebrated. You recognize that something is just not right with this situation. So now the question is, what next? Where is the learning that's coming from here? If we focus more so on the learning that comes from the mistakes, then students will know mistakes are okay. Mistakes are a part of life. It's all about learning from those mistakes and moving forward. We also could build time in to learn from constructive feedback and also build in time to apply the new learning. So once again, I believe as educators, we have this beautiful experience of bringing in both an art of teaching and a science of teaching, right? Not too many people can do those things. So you are very magical. And so building in that time can look like, let's say students are writing a narrative, right? And we're working on word choice for the day. Now, we can have students maybe buddy up or pair up and give feedback to each other. That's what I was used to in school. You would have someone that would kind of peer review and edit your work, and that was about it, right? But to make it a part of a conversation, right? So as an educator, I used to have this time where the students would gather all around and we would have an author's chair where that person who I selected for a specific reason, maybe it's a lesson I want to be able to teach the entire class, or maybe the student's work needs a little bit more eyes or assistance on it, and I want to create that classroom moment, right? This is not something you have to do every day, but this is something I've found to be very beneficial. So we would pull out one specific piece of the student's work. It might be one sentence, and have that student read that one sentence. And if we're working on word choice, ask the questions. What other words come to mind that could paint this a little bit better in your mind? And as students are sharing and thinking, it's up to the author to decide what they want to add to their writing, right? I used to hate if somebody marked up my paper, but it's still not my words, right? So now students are generating ideas, and then it's still up to that student who is, the author for the moment in time to determine what they are going to use to enhance their writing or paper. That can happen within a math classroom, a history classroom, a science classroom. So the content doesn't matter. It's really about the process and giving them the time to also apply that new learning, not just getting the feedback, but giving them time to actually apply it. And then finally, celebrating progress. And so celebrating progress could be as simple as whoa, you did it. Like you finally, were able to master this concept. Or it could be, I've seen so many educators recently have awards within their classroom just to celebrate a moment in time. It's not a huge production, but they make it feel super special that the students are growing, right? We have to award growth because not all of our students are starting off at the same levels, okay? And so I'm looking at the chat. I'm loving these comments. Lance is saying, I am the king of mistakes. Just means a lot, means to learn a lot, not to do things. Means to learn a lot of ways not to do things. I read that very wrong. So Lance, thank you for sharing that. Those are the types of statements that we also need to tell our students in our classroom so that they know, like, we're human. We're not looking for just the right answer. So this is going to be a moment where you are going to stop and think for a minute and just jot some things down. Let's see if this is working for me. Looks like my timer is not working while sharing my screen, but I'll give you a few seconds. Go ahead and jot down some ideas where you can maybe take some of the ones that I've shared, or maybe think about maybe something that you currently do in your classroom that really shows what fostering a growth mindset can look like and sound like for the grade level and subject area that you teach. And if you are comfortable in sharing, pop it in the chat so that we can all learn alongside you. All right, so we're going to move on. Thank you so much, Patrick, for popping your ideas in the chat. And others, keep those ideas flowing. All right, so now we're going to talk about the power of yet. Now, once again, this is something that I learned from one of my children. So my youngest is now 10, and I want to say at this time, when I heard her say, "Do you know about the power of yet?" She was probably 2.5 years old. And I go, "The power of yet? Like, what are you talking about?" So of course I had to ask her teacher. I'm like, "What is she talking about with the power of yet?" And so the teacher sent me this YouTube link, which was of a Sesame Street video. So here we go.
Oh, how does it go? Oh, this. You tried to act, but the numbers came out wrong. You tried to say, but you didn't know the whole song. You tried to cook, but the food it didn't taste right. You tried to dunk, but you didn't get enough right. You didn't do it right now, but keep trying. You learn now. You just didn't get it, but you get it so not bad. That's the power of the yet. That's the power of the yet. That is what you get.
All right, so I'm gonna pause it right there. But when I watched that video, I went, "Yep, that's 100% right. The power of yet," right? And so then I was able to have some really great conversations, not only with my daughter, but also the students that I was teaching at the time about the power of yet. Now, I know I failed many times trying to cook something from a recipe. And then as I fail, I'm learning the entire time. Maybe I can't master it right now, but I'm going to master it in the future. That is the power of yet. So thinking about, let's say, our struggling readers, right? My youngest daughter, she does struggle with reading, and she has to have strategies to help her learn to read. Whereas my oldest, she just picked up a book and just naturally read, right? Our students are going to come to us with different strengths and also different challenges, but those challenges are also opportunities for our students, and they need to see those as opportunities. And so when we think about this notion of the power of yet, we also want to tell our students it's not that they can't do it something right now. It's just they're not there yet. We're working towards that. We're going to get to that goal, and we're also going to exceed that goal. And when students know that, once again, their mindsets are going to develop in a different type of way, and they're going to receive that information in a different way, even if things are very difficult for them. So +1 to the power of yet. I'm sure each of you can think about something that you couldn't do before, but now you have mastered those things. All right. So what I want to leave you with in this story is that potential is nurtured. Okay. So you have the power as an educator to really allow your students to grow and thrive with the type of nurturing that you do, with the types of activities that you plan, with the types of feedback that you give, with the space that you create for your students. Okay, so you are the ones that are going to cultivate and nurture these students. Oops. And so a lot of times, we tell our students, well, just don't quit. Don't quit. Reverse the don't. Take out the negative piece of it and just say, do it. Do it, learn from it. Do it, learn from it, right? That is what life is all about. We do something, we learn from it. Even if we're successful, we think about how could I do that even better, right? And then if we fail at it, we say the same thing. How can I do that differently so that I can succeed the next time? So have that positive mindset of not thinking about the don'ts, but how can we do things and continuously learn? So one thing that we can do, especially at the beginning of a school year or beginning of a new course, is to create or co-create class norms and agreements with our students. So what this would look like and sound like is asking students, what do you think you need in order to be successful in this classroom? How do you feel, that how do you feel that you can contribute to others in their learning environment? What will it take for you to be your best self here every day, right? Those are some questions that you can ask your students. So here's just one that I came up with. We are learners, right? We are not coming into this classroom space as know-it-alls, right? We are coming here as learners. So I don't expect you to know everything, or we don't need a school if you know everything, right? In the world of AI, guess what? We can get information at our fingertips. What our purpose here is to be learners and thinkers, and we're going to use tools. We're going to communicate with others. We're going to read things. We're going to experience things so that we can learn and grow together. The second one is we are curious. Now, learning comes from curiosity, right? At the very early stages, when young children try to, pick up something and open it up. I have a little marker right here, and they see it opens, they go, "Ooh," and then they try to close it, and then they try to open it, right? It's all about those experiences. So we have to be curious in order to learn. What does curious looks like? That means asking questions, right? Wondering things. And these are things, once again, that we can bring into our language as educators. I always ask my students, like, what do you notice? What do you wonder? What are you curious about? Whether I'm showing them a picture or we're watching a video or we're interacting with content. We will share what we can. So we also have to realize we are not the only ones with knowledge. Those books are not the only ones. Our computers are not the only ones, but our students are coming with knowledge and experiences that they have. And some of those experiences might be very foreign to us, but if they are making the connection with the content, we need to leverage that. We will be ready to explore. So this is something where, every student, no matter what level they may be at or understanding of that content, if everyone is ready to, buckle up their seatbelts and get ready to explore, you will have a great learning environment. We will also take risks, and we talked about this risk taking a little earlier. And we will also respect the choices and ideas of others, because we know that, we may not think the same way, or we may not have the same ideas, but their ideas are going to lead to their learning. Your ideas are going to lead to your learning. And then if we share ideas, that can lead to new possibilities of learning, right? Bottom line, we are a community, right? So this is just one that, I put together, but I suggest that everyone take some time and think about how you want to co-create classroom norms and agreements for learning. So I do have the timer up. It actually worked this time. Look at that, the power of yet. So I'm going to put on our minute timer, and I want you to take a moment and think about, like, what are some norms that come to your mind that you want to set for your classroom? It's always helpful to have some ideas in mind as you are co-creating with students, so that if a student says something and oh yeah, that aligns to something that I was also thinking, you can craft it in a way where everyone has a collective understanding of what's happening. So take a moment. We have about 25 seconds left. And if you want to share maybe one norm or agreement that maybe I shared, or one that you came up with, make sure that you pop them in the chat. Oh, I love this. I want to see themselves as change agents. Yes. Great one. All right. So as we continue on, we are going to now transition over to strategies and techniques. So I will say we're only going to explore a few strategies today. There's tons that I can continue to share, and I'll make sure that the conference chairs get some other materials that can be shared out. But as an educator, we have to think about not only what we do in our classroom, but also how we do those things. And for me, I've been named savvy for a reason. I don't take anything face value. If somebody tells me something, I'm going to change it in some capacity, because I'm always thinking about how can that be even more effective, right? And so I'm going to share some strategies that can be no tech, low tech. You can add tech to it, okay? But no matter what, the strategy is what's going to drive the ideas and the learning, right? The technology is going to possibly enhance that or maybe transform it for a different purpose that you might have. So the first one that, actually, let's kind of set the stage for why. So the reason why we implement strategies in our classroom, I have a couple of words with inside of this recycle image. And I utilize the recycle image because this should be a continuous cycle within our classrooms, right? Those strategies should lead to aha moments for our students. Those strategies should lead to our students being critical thinkers. Those strategies should lead our students to having that autonomy, being those change agents, as someone shared. Also helping us with our practice, right? The more we use strategies, the more we can reflect on our own practices. If we use strategies, we can inspire our students. If we use strategies, we can build high performing or high achieving schools, right? Because those students are going to have those strategies as well that they're going to apply in different areas. So here is one called Hands Up. Now, if you're like me, you grew up in it. I grew up in the 80s. I'm an 80s baby. So I was born 42 years ago. So in a classroom, a teacher would ask a question and hands would go up. And I will say, I was that kid where my hand was like the first to go up. I used to compete with this guy named Kevin, like who can get their hand up first and answer the question, right? But what goes on in the brain with the student that has their hand raised in response to a question? So pop that in the chat. If I am that student that's quickly having my hand raised as soon as the teacher asks something, what's going on in my brain and others who are like me? Okay, so we see maybe the students feel that they will be recognized. Maybe those students are very confident, right? In my case with Kevin, it was more so about competition more than anything, right? Maybe those kids are good at playing the game, right? They know, hey, they're not going to call on the ones that always have the hand up, right? They've outsmarted the teacher, right? Those students are reassured. Great responses there. Love it all. Okay, now let's think about what goes on in the brain of a student with their hands down in response to a question. Yes, the students might be processing. Maybe they're very uncertain. Love these responses. Maybe it's a student, they're feeling like, I'm not good enough. I didn't get it as quick as someone else, so I'm just going to give up, right? Feeling incompetent, lack of belief in their abilities, right? So I know it's such a simple thing, but look how much we've just shared about what's happening to the psyche of our students when the hands up situation happens. So how might we change that, right? So here's a different thought on hands up. Here's fist to five. Now, we've probably all heard of a fist to five strategy. In many classrooms, we've seen this strategy or technique used to facilitate internal thinking, right? We want our students to think internally in relation to something, right? So whether that is to rate students' opinions about something. Show me fists to 5 of how you feel about XYZ. Or show a level of confidence, like how confident are you in this material? Fist to 5, right? How to self-evaluate maybe comprehension, or share readiness level for a task. How ready are you? Am I ready to go? Show me a 5. If I'm not ready, I need a little bit more, show me a fist. And then also to reach a consensus across the classroom. So here's my question. How might we take this to the next level to foster a growth mindset, right? So that's a great strategy, fist to 5. Remember, I don't take anything face value. So I'm like, all right, that's a great strategy. How can we use this now to take it to another level and create that community of learning for a growth mindset? So I was at a conference in Texas with one of my beautiful colleagues, and she used fist to 5. So I'm going to ask you first, before I share what she did, what do you notice and what do you wonder about the fist to 5? Just look at the images, just anything that pops into your mind, drop it into the chat. Nellie's like, I hope she doesn't call on me. That's a great one for those hands down, right? I missed that one, but yes, I've had those moments. What do you notice? What do you wonder when looking at the fist to 5? Wondering how those might be displayed, right? So it could be physical fingers, right? We could take it digitally, right? And do a quick form, right? Of a rating of a fist to 5. Any other notice and wonderings about it? Holding close to your chest. That's a great one, right? So that it's not on display for everyone else, but the teacher can kind of scan through. Okay. Oh, an inclusive option for reluctant learners, right? So we know that everybody's going to be on this continuum, and it's okay. Some days I might be a 5, and some days I might be a 1. Some days I might be a fist at the moment in time, right? I love that one as an inclusive option. So as we talk about this word inclusion, this is something that I noticed when Feli utilized fist to 5. When we have students, or number one, when we've created the environment first within our classroom to be able to take risks and understand that everyone is going to be a fist to 5 in some capacity at any given point in time. And what I would do is start off the year with things that have nothing to do with content, right? Think about those students who love video games. My daughter plays Roblox. I'm a fist with Roblox. I can't tell you the first thing about it, but she's a 5x5. Like, she can probably tell you everything about it, right? Does that make her any better or not than me? No, she has experience. She has knowledge about something that I don't. So what's going to help me get closer to her level when we pair together, right? So if I'm a fist and she's a 5, together we make a 5, right? Those students who are like, well, I have some knowledge, I'm a 3. And maybe there's some other students that have some knowledge and they have a 2. Well, I'm gonna pair them together, or they can pair themselves together. They can scan the room and they can see who they can make a 5 with, right? And now they can have this inclusive option where they have someone that they can rely on. They have someone that they can learn from. They have someone that might be able to shift their perspective, even if they're a 5, that fist might be able to shift their perspective about something in the way that they are sharing about things. So when those numbers are combined, we can really foster a community of learners with a growth mindset. So I want you to just take a moment and just jot down for yourselves, how might you use fist to 5 within your classroom, or to maybe introduce a concept, or to review materials, however you were thinking about fist to 5. If you feel comfortable, share your ideas in the chat, how you can use fist to 5. All right, we are going to move on. So our next strategy is an anticipation guide. Now, when we hear that word anticipation, right, we know that that's going to happen before learning. Okay, what is it that we anticipate this learning to really be about? So I'm going to go to the next slide. And for most people, an anticipation guide will have a statement and whether they agree or disagree with the statement, and that's it, right? I don't take anything face value. So I've modified the anticipation guide where our students really think about statements, and these statements that you would create as an educator can be true or false statements. Now, granted, I know that might seem like a lot of work, but we have a companion now called AI, right? And we can say, create 10 true false statements about this piece of content, right? And quickly generate some ideas that might go along with our learning. Or for me as an educator, before the world of AI, what I used to do is think about what were those misconceptions that students always had about certain pieces of content, right? I want to surface those misconceptions in the forefront. Why is that? Because once it's in their brain and then they interact with something that tells them that that's not really true, it dislodges that information from their brain and it sticks more, right? And that's where the learning happens. So with this modified anticipation guide, and this is one that I used with educators during a professional development, right? So before we even started our professional development, I asked them, read every statement and determine whether you agree or disagree with the statement, right? Then after everyone would go through that, then I would have the moment of learning. So the moment of learning could be a video. It could be an article. It could be something within a textbook, just any type of content that the students are interacting with. It could be an interview with someone, right? And then after that has happened and students are, making their notes and jotting down ideas, and they're going to have those aha moments because we've already preloaded them with these statements of whether they agree or disagree. So when those moments happen, they're like, oh, yeah, that was true, or oh, that's not true, right? The entire time. And so after that has occurred, you present them again with those same statements. They have the same, if you're using a sheet of paper or if you're using a digital tool, they go back to the exact same thing. They read those statements again. They choose whether they agree or disagree, but this time they are going to cite the evidence. How do you know? So whether it was in a video and something was said and it was a phrase, they're jotting those things down as they are coming up in the video. Or if they're reading text, maybe they're highlighting and then transferring that evidence onto that document. And so now the students can pair up and have a conversation. Yes, I totally agree with this, and this is why, and they have the evidence there to be able to prove it or not prove it. And then you have a really great community of learning, fostering deep conversations amongst one another. So let's go to the next slide. So if you want to take your anticipation guide digital, you can easily use a form, whether that is a Microsoft form or a Google form, right? And so here are just some steps that you can use if you're going to do it digital. So prior to that instruction, you're going to develop that Microsoft form or Google form, or even better, you can have students come up with statements that they believe to be true or not, right? So students can get in a collaborative doc, put in things that they think or feel or believe about a certain piece of content. You can use that to drive your anticipation guide before you give them the content. Once you provide them with the link to the form, they're going to read through those statements and determine whether they agree with the statement or disagree with the statement. You're, as an educator, you're going to take some time and glance over that before teaching the lesson to see, okay, where are the misconceptions lying? Who might need a little bit more, maybe assistance, or who might I be on the lookout for if I know someone has chosen something that's like a huge misconception, right? Then as the teacher teaches the lesson, the teacher will emphasize the areas of the misconceptions, right? Those are the points of learning that we want to make. So it's very intentional. And then after the lesson, you provide the students with the link of the copy of the anticipation guide and give them time to change their answer, right? Because now we want them to be able to go, oh, well, I used to think this, or I believe this, but now I think something totally different. I believe something totally different because now I have the evidence for that. And then once everyone is finished, then the teacher can share the whole form or further discuss, because it could lead to a really good discussion if they're still differing of opinions, right? And it really allows our students to justify their thinking. That's a higher level of thinking, and all of our students can do that, whether they're 5 or 15 or 50. Every single one can do those things. So I want you to take a moment right now and think about how might you utilize an anticipation guide for your content or grade level. And if you feel like sharing, please add that to the chat as well. Seems like Lynn likes anticipation guides too. I'm all about a good protocol. I saw the me too. Lynn, you're speaking my language. Awesome. Hopefully that allowed you to think through some ideas. So we are going to take this to the next level. And for me, the next level is getting students to really verbalize those things. Now, one of my favorite tools, you probably know why, is Microsoft Flip. It used to be called Flipgrid. Same tool, just even better, 100% free. But what I love about it is that students can be their true authentic selves and be able to communicate thoughts and ideas where everyone has access to it. So once again, students learn from each other. We only have so many minutes within a class period. I know some schools have 50-minute blocks for class periods. Some might have 25, some may have 75, right? But it's still not enough time for students to be able to learn and grow from one another. So if we take the same concept that we just shared with the anticipation guide and now turn it into, I used to think, but now I know for students, once again, we're fostering and cultivating that growth mindset for them to have that reflection. So this is a topic that I didn't even create. This was a topic that was created by Kamal Preet from India, that she added to the Flip Discovery Library. And basically in this topic, it's a core thinking routine for reflecting on how and why our thinking has changed. And so is if they want to use create mode and share what they used to think and now what they think with pictures and words, they can do so. If they don't want to show their face and they want to use audio mode with these sound waves and make it sound like a podcast and be as creative as they want, they can now do so right inside of Flip. And so what that does for the student is allow them to reflect, but also verbalize. The more we verbalize, that metacognition also kicks in, right? And their learning will stick even more. In addition to that, inside of every topic, you can add up to 10 additional resources for students to explore. So you'll see here that in this topic, she has some attachments for thinking routines and purpose application and launch, et cetera. So those are additional resources that can be utilized. So as educators, let's say if you had your I used to think and now I think as the question, but you wanted to provide your students with those resources once again, so that they can go back, double check, cite, learn more, maybe extend their learning. You can do so within those links. And once those students go home, the student that might not have really gotten the point of the day or still have those misconceptions, they can now go back and listen to their peers in a safe way, right? No one is going to know how many times they watched that video, but that video has now become a personalized tutor, in a sense, for that student to understand those concepts. Once again, the power of yet. So I know we have roughly about 5 minutes left, so I want to leave some space for questions as well. Let's remember, cultivating a growth mindset can help students recognize and also appreciate diverse thinking, right? We all come from very diverse backgrounds or diverse experiences. So one is not better than any other, right? It gives us a new window, a new perspective to see life through. It also can help us overcome challenges. I always used to tell my students who seem to have challenges or be frustrated at the challenges, sometimes our challenges are our superpowers, right? Like, I have ADD. I am all over the place, but I can multitask. I can do a lot of things. I can connect with people. So we also have to allow our students to find out, like, what are those strengths in the midst of the challenges that they're also facing, or those barriers that they're also facing. And then finally, they will achieve their goals, right? And they have to know what the goal is before they achieve it. And that's what we can do. We can help them co-create those goals so that they know the targets that they're aiming for. And when we do all of these things, we truly build a learning community. That's what our classroom should be. And sometimes I don't even like to say classroom. This is our learning community. This is where we are going to come and thrive and learn and share and grow together. And so that's what my hope is for each of you in this next school year. So any questions or thoughts before we wrap up? I know we still have a couple more minutes. So if you do have questions, make sure to pop it in the chat. Here, this is just something I'm just going to reiterate. In order for us to create these growth mindsets in our classrooms, we have to build on their prior knowledge. Prior knowledge means we got to know our students. You have to make time to really get to know them, get to know their families. Send out, it could be a flip, it could be a form, send out a letter, something to a family at the beginning of the school year and say, hey, I'm here to, co-teach with you. Parents are the first teachers. Caregivers are those first teachers, right? And we're there to co-teach with them. Let's build on that family knowledge, that student knowledge. We also must deconstruct those misconceptions and recognize them at a point in which the learning is occurring, right? That's when we have those aha moments that go off in our brain. We want to be a classroom full of aha moments because we've deconstructed all of those misconceptions or those mistakes, and we are all learning. And then finally, we will create new possibilities together. I'm not seeing any questions right now in the chat. Any of the moderators have anything you want to bring up or share?
Jornea, I don't know that there's necessarily any pressing questions or things to continue to highlight, other than the fact that you provide a great sampling of some strategies and resources for us to be mindful of. And I know that we also have the luxury of you sharing some additional thoughts at the fall conference in October. So we're excited that we've kind of seen a preview of some of those pieces. And I think the one thing that is great to highlight is the fact that technology is great, but there's a wide array of strategies that we can use that doesn't rely solely on technology to engage our learners, to develop that growth mindset, to recognize all of those unique characteristics that each of those students bring into our classroom. So I appreciate you finding that balance for us, because I know that that seems to be some of the challenges with that transition after COVID, and so many on-screen needs needing to have different balances between leveraging technology and not. So with that, I appreciate you taking the time to share those strategies for us to create that brave and safe space, providing those strategies with us that we can level up with using Flip or things like Google Forms, Microsoft Forms. Same thing, the one piece that I had jotted a note down of really just that potential needing to be nurtured, and just how powerful it is for us as educators to be able to nurture the potential that students bring into the classrooms. And they might not know it yet, but again, as long as we leverage that power of yet, as Sesame Street highlighted, it's a great way for us to continue to push the power of thinking in that brave and safe space that we have in those classrooms with our kiddos. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Again, I appreciate everything, Jornea, that you have shared today.